Hi! In this video I'm going to talk about demons in tabletop role-playing games. I'm going to talk about what I like about them, of using them in adventures and campaigns and such, and I'm also perhaps going to offer some tips on how to use them. And by the end of this video I'm going to present well, I guess you could call it a scary story. It doesn't feel that scary, but it's still a scary story technically. Um, and that will serve as an inspiration for tabletop role-playing game encounters or perhaps even adventures. Well, something that I really like using demons in RPGs is that they are quite flexible. You can use them for different themes, genres. You can use them for combat encounters or for something a bit more subtle. In tabletop role-playing games, there's usually somewhat of a categorization of demons, but you could basically say that in most of them they divide them in categories of demons and devils. Devils being somewhat smarter, it depends on the game, but they are usually like they rely on trickery and deceit and making pacts and such. And demons are just like more on the side of enforcers, of brute force, and just causing raw destruction and chaos. But as I was telling you, it depends on many factors. In some other games, devils are considered more like a higher category of demons, perhaps even leaders of demons. But in this video, I will generally talk about all of the categories as demons, just like that. Well, let's talk about ways in which you can use demons in different types of games. For example, in high fantasy games, demons are perfect adversaries for combat encounters, but they can also serve as masterminds. In many combat encounters, demons have fire-related abilities, but you can also use ice demons and such. And when you plan to use them as masterminds, they prepare some pretty nefarious plots, usually manipulating different kings and leaders and all sorts of people that usually wield some sort of power or resources to get humanity into trouble. Or some other demons just want to like reap the, let's say, like the sins and degenerate acts of humanity. They usually get some sort of like energy from it, and so they're quite flexible, as I was telling you. But something that I really enjoy in combat encounters when using demons is that they must represent a major threat. The characters shouldn't feel at ease when fighting demons. They usually have some pretty nasty abilities, or they deal a lot of damage. So I think that's something that is a must-have in any demonic encounter when it comes to combat. And when they are handled as masterminds as well, it's better that they they remain hidden, that the main characters don't understand that perhaps the demon is or devil is possessing an emperor, or using them, all sorts of rulers as puppets and such. But what if you want to use demons in a more gritty, realistic sort of game? I think in those types of RPGs, it's better to use demons sort of like this very, very subtle, almost like a curse type of presence that you're not entirely sure if there's actually a demon behind something. Of course, this lends itself better to more like investigator type of games. I would say Lovecraftian, but it's a different sort of theme. And usually demons in those type of gritty games or realistic games, they represent more of a source of horror through clues and some unsettling or disturbing events. It's always quite handy to enhance the aspect of demonic horror when you, for example, place some type of room or an entire building that has all sorts of like demonic ritual signs, like oh, there's some weird symbols in the floor or in the walls, and maybe there's blood, or there are bones of animals or even humans that somebody did sacrifices for the demons or something. And that way the private investigators, in case of a game that is more on the paranormal or private investigator type of game, And they're going to start thinking, maybe is there actually some sort of supernatural force behind this, or is this just the work of some lunatic that is doing all these sorts of disturbing acts? Or maybe what if it's both? But what if the lunacy of a certain villain or whatever is actually the cause of demonic possession? And there are just many ways in which you can use demons and devils, and many ways that you can customize situations according to the theme. So, for example, let's go to science fiction type of games. Demons right there could feel almost like an alien presence of sorts, and you can handle it like that. But it can still be quite disturbing. There are many movies that are examples of this, like for example, Event Horizon. You can have all that blood and gore and somewhat of a ritualistic feeling to the whole affair. Sort of like a satanic feel to the entire thing. Now I'm going to tell you this story. Supposedly it happened in the 1500s. It's not that known or not that popular. It's one of the rarer stories in my opinion. But I won't say exactly the name of the one who is telling it. He's supposed to be somewhat famous Italian artist. But well, when it comes to those creepy stories, it's somewhat delicate to reveal the name, but maybe there's someone who likes that artist a lot and feels that you are like kind of like what would you say, staining his reputation or whatever. So I'm going to refer to this person as Art. Well, the story goes like this. Art was in Sicily visiting his Catholic priest friend, and they started talking about many things. And suddenly the conversation took a bit of a supernatural turn. They started talking about necromancy and demons and all sorts of paranormal stuff. And Art told the Catholic priest that he wished that he could see some sort of supernatural proof of some type of evidence that those forces exist. And the Catholic priest told him, I can show you such things, just they set up a date to meet at the Colosseum at a certain night. And the priest told Art that he could bring a couple of friends to the ceremony. And so the date came up and they gathered at the Colosseum. The priest started making all those circles to summon the demons and started chanting the words of power and all the ritual procedure. And then the entire Colosseum was filled with these horrible creatures. There was just hundreds and hundreds of these demons, and they were surrounding the circle. But the priest felt quite confident, and he told Art, now you can ask something of them. And so Art made like a request, and then the priest banished those demons with so that they could carry out that mission. And so a few days passed, and Art eventually talked with the priest and told him, I didn't get my request fulfilled. And the priest was somewhat annoyed. He was like, oh no, that's no good, we have to do the ceremony again. And he said, but this time I'm bringing someone else, and you can bring again a couple of friends to the ceremony. And so the date came up again at the Colosseum, and this time the Catholic priest brought a small boy. I remember the first time that I heard this story was like, a Catholic priest with a small boy? That's no good. but no, nothing like that happened. Well, they gathered at the Colosseum, and they went into the circle, and the boy was supposedly there to help them better perceive the demons that they were going to summon. And so once again the priest started chanting the words of power, but this time he used more complicated words and with more feeling, like putting a lot more oomph into it. And so this time even more demons have appeared, and they were quite hideous, even more horrifying than the other ceremony. But this time everybody started to freak out because of the horrifying appearances of the demons. Even the priest he freaked out, and he was supposed to be the master of ceremony, and he didn't know what to do. And the boy started crying hysterically, saying that there were four gigantic things trying to break their way into the circle, and everybody just lost their minds. They were quite insane with, because of the horror, and and only the boy could see those four gigantic things. But Art kind of like he took courage, and he said, "No, this is not. This is the moment where a man has to show his mettle." And he was like, "Cheer up!" and trying to get the others to get their bearings and to pull themselves together. So they started chanting again all of the words, but demons would not go away, and they spent the entire night. I think it was I don't remember if it was 12 or 3 in the morning, and they started chanting all the way to until sunrise. And only then, only with the first rays of the sun, the demons vanished, and they were actually able to depart the circle safely. And now, and I don't remember if he actually got his request. I don't think so. But this story serves as inspiration for many horrific encounters with demons. Because, for example, I'm thinking, let's say that you are playing a sandbox type of campaign of Lamentations of the Flame Princess. Maybe the characters could read that there's a certain ritual to acquire power, or maybe the characters need to information on where a particular tomb is located, or treasure, or whatever that you like, and only a particular group of demons know the answer, and maybe they need to do some research, traveling from villages to ruins and etc., gathering clues on how to do this ritual. And if you're like a cruel referee or game master, maybe it's a very, they need specific words of power or ingredients to perform that ritual. And if they don't get it right, maybe you could get a total party kill, as when the party summons the demons devour them or do something worse. So that's one way in which you can use the encounter. On a high fantasy type of game, perhaps 13th Age or Pathfinder, maybe you can handle it a bit more of a brawl. Maybe they need a priest to perform, a cleric or whatever, to perform a ritual to summon those demons that have some important information, and the ritual goes wrong, or the cleric goes insane in the middle of the ritual, somewhat like you would see in a Call of Cthulhu type of situation. And maybe the player characters have to fight hordes and hordes of demons until sunrise, or go. Maybe they're doing it inside some sort of structure or temple, and they have to survive until sunrise. There are many ways in which you can handle that, but I think in high fantasy you could handle it more like a combat encounter. Or maybe let's say that you want to play it as a modern type of game. Maybe it could be a rock group, a rock band that uses a lot of satanic names, and because of that they end up possessed and they start killing each other. And they have to, those survivors, the surviving members of the band, have to perform this sort of like a ritual to get rid of this demonic presence. And again, you can handle it in many different ways. I'm thinking that they could do the ritual inside like an abandoned mansion or something, and they could have again trouble doing it, and they will have to be running around trying to escape from the demons and such. Or maybe if it's a science fiction game, what if they're space explorers and they go into a planet and they find some strange tablets and they decipher this alien language, and they realize that it's the procedure for some sort of ritual, and they start calling these alien demons, so to speak, these demons that they have never seen or read anything about them. So those are just a few ways in which you could use these stories. I was thinking it would be pretty cool that they could have like a ritual chamber in the spaceship if it was like a science fiction game, and again you could take inspiration from Event Horizon and such. So the theme of demons in tabletop role-playing games is somewhat complex, because even though they are quite flexible and useful, they almost apply to any sort of situation which you want violence and horror. It's somewhat of an art form to apply them to different genres, depending on the thing that you want to accomplish with those demons. And there are just so many ways that you can use them. And if you need further inspiration, you could take a look at different stories. They appear in almost every mythology, or at the very least, you're going to find monstrous creatures in different mythologies that fit the bill of demons. Maybe they're like a rose by any other name, in this case, a very thorny and horrific rose. Or maybe, for example, if you look like at different movies or paranormal investigations and such, even though they could end up quite cheesy, they could still serve as inspiration for your adventures, encounters, campaigns, etc. Well, thanks for watching my video. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. See you later.